We are finally getting to the good stuff, right? The actual all-out warfare that the lore has promised us for years. For Season 3 of House of the Dragon, we are going to look strictly past the flashy cuts and the swelling, heroic music. Instead, I really want to pull back the curtain on the dark, twisted reality that's hiding just in the shadows of these moments. We're going to meticulously break down the massive cinematic events, untangle this deeply chaotic timeline, and uncover those hidden Easter eggs that completely recontextualize the framing, the lighting, and the overall narrative of what we are about to witness. And to really do that properly, I have to ask this pivotal question right out of the gate. What is the true cost of taking the Iron Throne? Because when you look at these scattered moments for the first time, it is incredibly easy to just get swept up in the roaring dragons and the grand declarations of power. But I want to draw your attention to the hidden psychological details and the massive scale of the upcoming war that honestly, you probably missed on a first pass. The narrative is deliberately structured to make it feel like an overwhelming, triumphant moment for Rhaenyra and the Blacks. It feeds you all those big hero shots and majestic angles. But if we dig a little deeper into the psychology of these characters, we start to understand the grim truth of this entire conflict. Now, what is absolutely crucial to understand here is this exact definition: a Pyrrhic victory. It's the literal thesis of the Dance of the Dragons. While the grand cinematic angles make this seem like Rhaenyra's glorious, unassailable ascension, the brutal reality of the actual warfare is that both sides are going to lose terribly. There will be winners from battle to battle for sure, and castles will absolutely trade hands. But generally speaking, the Greens and the Blacks wind up losing really, really hard. The toll on their humanity, their families, and their dragons is absolute. So, as we break down these breathtaking cinematic frames, I need you to keep this looming devastation deeply planted in the back of your mind. Section 1. Taking the Iron Throne. The Fall of King's Landing. Okay, so I'm going to organize this chaotic sequence into a clear, chronological timeline to show you exactly how this historic sack unfolds. Step 1, we see Rhaenyra marching through the dim stone halls of the Red Keep with her Kingsguard. The sheer scale of the architecture here, bathed in this really cold light, heavily emphasizes the isolation of her new position. Next up, we have this brilliant visual metaphor. Rhaenyra literally burning all of Aegon's green banners to replace them with her black and red Targaryen sigils. The flames are vibrant and all-consuming, representing the literal and figurative burning away of the Green's reign. And finally, step 3, we see her standing completely alone before the throne, looking at her father's crown, Jaehaerys' crown. She's preparing to claim what she believes is rightfully hers. But notice the glaring emotional void missing from this supposedly triumphant sequence. She has zero smiles. I mean, absolutely none. I want you to really look at her cold, joyless expression as she approaches the throne. This isn't some happy homecoming. It isn't a celebration. In fact, if you look really closely at the framing of one of her approaches, you can clearly see blood on her bare feet. So why is she so merciless? Well, a very dark early season tragedy fundamentally strips away any mercy she had left and leaves her completely out for blood against the Greens. The cinematography here is incredibly heavy, and it perfectly reflects the deep trauma she is carrying into that cavernous throne room. Section 2. The Power of Dragons, an Unassailable Empire. The absolute crux of this psychological dynamic is the narration from Daemon. You now have the power no man has ever wielded. We see Daemon talking to Rhaenyra. They aren't in their heavy armor, it's nighttime, the lighting is incredibly intimate, and they've already taken the city. Daemon is deliberately gassing Rhaenyra up here. He's pushing her, manipulating the narrative to convince her of her absolute supremacy so she can solidify her grip on King's Landing. He knows she needs to rule with an iron fist, and he is playing the role of the ultimate enabler in the shadows. But, I have to correct the historical record on his grand statement here. When Daemon claims no man has ever wielded this power, actually, scratch that, it's technically not true if we look back to the expansive lore of ancient Valyria, which had vastly more dragons filling the skies. However, within the context of Westerosi Targaryen history, his assessment is absolutely correct. Right now, Rhaenyra and Daemon collectively control more living, active dragons than Aegon the Conqueror and his sister wives did during the actual conquest. Aegon had Balerion the Black Dread, sure, but sheer numbers-wise, the Blacks possess an absolute, unassailable empire of fire. The sheer magnitude of this military might literally cannot be overstated. And this brilliantly illustrates how the cinematic framing tries to trick you. During this exact same hushed conversation, Daemon says, "Our children will rule it forever and a day." And then the edit deliberately cuts to a heavily loaded, emotional frame of Rhaenyra looking back at Jace. It feels incredibly poignant, but it's intentionally misleading. While Jace is deeply involved in the season's overarching plot, Daemon is specifically talking about the biological children he and Rhaenyra had together, Aegon III and Viserys II. Those are the specific children who do eventually sit on the Iron Throne. Uncovering this masterful piece of deceptive editing completely shifts how we view the true path of the royal lineage going forward. Section 3. Aemon's empty Harrenhal victory. Echoes of Daemon.
Okay, so we see Aemon's touching down in the Riverlands. Take a really close look at his physical state here. He is without his eye patch, completely stripped of his usual guarded aesthetic, and he's just radiating this raw, unbridled emotion as he immediately burns people and demands swords be drawn. But the grand strategic joke here is deeply tied to the location itself. Just like Daemon's almost comedic, dreamlike capture of Harrenhal earlier, Aemon arrives to an empty, decaying castle. Rhaenyra and Daemon masterfully sprung a trap. They tricked Aemon into flying the massive Vhagar far, far away from the capital. While he's busy screaming at stone walls and slaughtering Simon Strong alongside a mere skeleton crew of caretakers at Harrenhal, the Blacks are sacking King's Landing. Aemon's raw rage here stems directly from the realization that he has been completely, utterly outplayed.
Which naturally opens the door to a deeply fascinating psychological question. We don't see Alice Rivers directly in this specific sequence, but make no mistake, she is there. The profound psychological torment Aemon is likely about to face is a thrilling prospect. I mean, will he start having the same bizarre hallucinatory visions that haunted Daemon's every waking hour? How much is Alice going to mess with his deeply fractured head? The lore points to a heavy reliance on the magical, mind-bending elements of Harrenhal, and Alice Rivers is going to have an incredibly dark, twisted time breaking Aemon down mentally while he is trapped in that cursed castle. Section 4. The Greens spiraling out. Desperation and defeat. So we get this incredibly powerful, desperate rallying cry from Ormond Hightower to restore a rightful king. He has brought a massive portion of the Hightower army marching straight from Old Town, vowing to kill Aemond in revenge or die trying. What is genuinely brilliant about the cinematic editing here is how it aggressively flashes between a crippled, agonizingly injured Aegon II hiding out with Larys Strong and a hyper-ambitious Aemond serving as regent. Aemond is holding the Conqueror's sword Blackfire, literally the ultimate symbol of Targaryen legitimacy. The Greens aren't just fighting the incoming fire of the Blacks, they are a completely fractured house. They are deeply divided and essentially fighting themselves for the right to hold that sword. And we see the ultimate heartbreaking consequence of this total collapse with Alicent. There is a deeply tense, incredibly claustrophobic sequence where she is talking to Helaena, trying to secretly sneak her granddaughter Jahaira out of the Red Keep to safety. The lighting is super low, the tension is just palpable. But then, the very next moment shows them forcefully hauled into the cavernous Iron Throne room, completely dwarfed by the architecture. There's a gold cloak standing guard. The brutal reality here is that Rhaenyra caught them. Alicent originally sought peace, but she failed entirely. And now, she is effectively a prisoner in the Red Keep, trapped with a merciless Rhaenyra who has absolutely zero intention of ever letting them go. Then we are hit with this deeply chaotic, absolutely terrifying shot of Helaena. The camera pushes in on her and she looks like she is screaming in pure agony while giving birth. But if we dig a little deeper into the timeline and the established lore, Helaena hasn't been pregnant recently, and her book counterpart's son, Maelor, was completely omitted from the narrative. So we have to deeply analyze the terrifying implications here. Is this a literal birth, or is this her having another dark, violently prophetic vision of herself? The pacing of the sequence is deeply unsettling. Whatever it actually is, it firmly hints at a tragically dark trajectory for her character, as her mental state completely shatters and the walls of the Red Keep close in around her. Section 5. Battles and Hidden Details. Blood in the Mud. The rapid-fire battle scenes are kind of a non-linear mess, so I am going to untangle it into a clear, distinct timeline for you to follow. First up, we catch chaotic, waterlogged glimpses of the Battle of the Gullet, notably spotting Adam of Hull fiercely fighting amidst massive burning ships. Second, we have the taking of King's Landing, where we see a blood-soaked Daemon violently fighting his way through green guards in the dimly lit halls of the Red Keep, and honestly, he looks like he's having the absolute time of his life doing it. And third, we see these later, incredibly muddy battles, heavily implied to be the infamous Butcher's Ball. This is perfectly signaled by a thoroughly dejected Criston Cole out in the woods, totally stripped of his pride, violently burning his own armor in a profound moment of emotional and military defeat. Now I want you to take a really close look at this brilliant piece of cinematic costume design. We get a quick over-the-shoulder shot of an armored Rhaenyra talking to Corlys Velaryon. Corlys is out of his armor, signaling that this is happening in the quieter aftermath of the Gullet. But from behind, Rhaenyra's silhouette looks almost perfectly identical to Daemon. The textured plating, the rigid shoulders, the shade of white in her hair is just slightly softer, but otherwise, in full armor, they are complete visual mirrors. It heavily implies a complete merging of their ruthless military philosophies, but it also brilliantly shows us exactly what Daenerys Targaryen would have looked like standing in full Westerosi plate armor from behind centuries later. It's an amazing detail. And this brings us to a wonderfully macabre detail hidden right in the background framing. Who is the skull burning in the fireplace? We see a rapid cut to this, and the focus is incredibly deliberate. So let me theorize with you for a second. Does this skull belong to the unknown victim we see getting violently beheaded in the Iron Throne Room when the Blacks first stormed the keep? The sheer nonchalance of just tossing a human skull into a roaring fireplace perfectly captures the casual cruelty that has firmly taken up residence in the castle under this new occupation. But look, the profound cruelty goes both ways. We get a fleeting, devastatingly framed scene of Rhaenyra spiraling, leaning over a dead body. The emotional weight of this single, quiet frame is absolutely staggering. If you know, you know. This represents a massive, earth-shattering early season event that completely and utterly breaks Rhaenyra's spirit. Without delving into overt spoilers, the sheer scale of the loss she suffers here is exactly why she becomes so terrifyingly cold on the throne. It is the catalyst for why she fundamentally rejects Alicent's later pleas for mercy. This singular tragedy shatters her completely, and the war officially morphs from a complex political dispute into an unapologetic campaign of absolute fiery annihilation.
Which culminates in this definitive, incredibly chilling statement from Rhaenyra. There are no doubts about who the gods have chosen to rule. As she delivers this line, glaring intensely at Jaehaerys' crown, notice the incredible texture of her dress. The costuming literally looks like it is intricately woven from rigid dragon scales. Targaryens have always loved dressing up to reflect their dragons, of course, but here, the symbolism is heavy and absolute. It represents her uncompromising descent into total war. She isn't just riding the dragon anymore, right? She has become the dragon, armor, scales, fire, and all.
And that naturally leads me to my final, overarching thought for you to deeply consider after analyzing all of this. Both sides are completely, delusionally convinced of their divine right to the throne. Both sides are willingly wielding catastrophic weapons of mass destruction to secure it. So I have to ask you, when the smoke finally clears and the colossal dragons inevitably fall from the sky, will there be anyone left to rule the ashes? That is the ultimate, heartbreaking tragedy of a Pyrrhic victory. It's a profoundly chilling thought to leave you with today, but one that perfectly sets the stage for the dark psychological warfare this story is about to unleash. Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep your eyes sharp. There is always more hidden in the flames.